What's up? In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a campaign in SmartLead from start to finish. So in order to do this, you're going to need a few things in place to begin with. Those things are obviously your copywriting, and it should be spin-taxed if you're planning to use spin-tax in SmartLead, which I highly recommend in order to create variety of wording so that you're not sending exactly the same email to thousands of people, which can get you flagged as spam pretty damn quickly. So that's the first thing. Second thing is obviously your lead list. And with your lead list, I would recommend to remove all the columns that you don't plan to upload into SmartLead, just to simplify it and reduce the risk of mistakes when mapping different columns to different fields in SmartLead. So with all that said, let's get started. So when you're in your SmartLead account, you're going to be seeing a view that looks like this. If you don't see this, all you need to do is click on Email Campaign in this menu on the left, and that is going to bring you here. And from there, you can click Create Campaign on the right. So the first thing we're going to do is give the campaign a name. I usually give it a name that makes it very clear to understand what it is. So I'll name it by the client's name, the campaign name as in who are we targeting, anything about a specific signal, and then today's date, and then also which batch or group of mailboxes we're going to be using. So I might say group A, for example, and I might put today's date, 29th June 2025, and so on and so forth. So for example, like that. Okay. So you're going to be presented with this tab first of all that says import leads. You don't have to import leads right at the start, and actually I usually start with sequences. So if we click into the sequences screen, this is what it looks like, and you're going to need to put in your subject line and your email body as an absolute minimum. So if we come over to our copywriting document, we have here some subject lines. Now these subject lines are written in spin-tax. So what does that mean? It means that the first recipient is going to receive scaling without hires. The second recipient is going to receive grow without hiring. The third recipient is going to receive this, and so on and so forth. So depending on who you are in the list and your position in the list as SmartLead goes through them, it's going to send different variations of the spin-tax to different people. So there's the subject line. Now we're going to take the body, and we're going to, so we're being warned that we need to make sure that the body is not empty. So we're going to click Review Campaign, paste that in there, and save changes down at the bottom. Now, as you can see, this is email 1, variant A. We can add a variant here if we want to A/B test. And so for version B, what I might do is just try removing both of these second and third paragraphs and test a much more punchy, shorter version of the email. In that case, I'm going to take the subject line here and paste it here. And you can add as many variants as you want. Obviously, you don't want to have like 20 variations in most cases. You might want somewhere between 2 and say 5 variations. Depending on the size of your list, you need to make sure that when you're A/B testing things, that your data that you get back is statistically significant in order for you to make decisions and double down on which option or which variant you think work better. So you can see that both of these variants are toggled on. If we wanted to, we could disable one of the variants. We could even click on the trash can icon to delete it, but I'm going to leave it turned on. And next, we're going to add a step. And so it asks you, do you want to add an email step or do you want to add a manual step? We're going to go with email. And then we're going to wait for a certain number of days between emails 1 and 2. So I'm going to put 3 days. That is the length that I normally put. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to grab all of the text for email 2. And again, it's warning me to make sure that this is not empty. So as you can see, if you have a look at this spin-tax, and if I zoom in, you might be able to see that better. So it says happy to, if helpful I can, if useful I'd be happy to, and then next put together pipe create pipe build you, and so we use curly braces for each syntax block. But a custom variable is denoted by double curly braces before and after it. And you can input any custom variable that is available to you by pressing curly brace, and let's zoom out a little bit. And because I haven't selected any of these custom variables yet, I'm getting a message error warning down at the bottom, and that will disappear as soon as I choose one of these options. So let's do that again. Okay. So it's not showing the variants this time. Let's see if we can do it up here at the top. Okay, so we get first name, last name, email, phone number. And so this is why SmartLead would like you to ideally upload or import your leads beforehand, because imagine if you import a list that contains a custom variable that you want to use to personalize your emails. Well, if you've already imported the leads, that custom variable is going to be available to you in this drop-down menu. But because we haven't uploaded the variable yet, if we were to use a custom variable, let's say for example in this list I wanted to use founded year as a custom variable in the email copy, then I would need to make sure that I input it pretty much exactly as it's written here. So it has a capital F, capital Y, and there's a space between the word founded and year. So the way that you would write this as a custom variable in SmartLead would be paste it in, close it with a double curly brace, and then replace that space with an underscore. So you can see here first name is written first underscore name with double curly braces before and after it. So this is how founded year would need to be written, assuming that you're importing this sheet with this exact column naming convention. So hopefully that makes everything clear to you about custom variables. You can see in this email that the only custom variable we have is first name. If you look and read the copy, none of the other text in this email has any double curly braces. You can also use double curly braces in the subject line. So this can be useful, for example, if you wanted to have an email with a subject line, Happy Wednesday, John, you could say, for example, happy, and then SmartLead day of week, and then double curly brace opener, choose first name. Now this is an option for a subject line. I'm not sure if it's the best subject line in the world because it has absolutely no relevance to the topic that you're talking about, but it might be able to capture people's attention and make them curious to read it. But then it's kind of baiting and switching, isn't it? Because then they read the email and it's totally, it's unrelated to that. So I usually try to make my subject lines short, maximum 3, sometimes 4 words. I try to keep them all lowercase, and I try to make them curiosity driven to increase the chances that people would open them. And I also try to make them relevant to the subject of what I'm talking about in the email so that people don't feel like they're being duped when they get curious enough to open your email and then see that you're talking about something slightly different to that topic. So anyway, we have put in email 1, we have 2 variants, we're waiting for 3 days, and then we've already put in email 2, and I'm just going to stick with this. I'm not going to add additional emails. One thing you need to be aware of is the more times you email a person who does not really have any interest in what it is you're offering, the more chance they're going to mark your email as spam, and that could be highly detrimental for the health of your domains and your mailboxes and your sender deliverability. So I normally stick with just 2 emails, and our mailboxes tend to last for a pretty long time, a lot longer than the industry average, I would say. So now that that's done, and I've clicked on save down here, we have everything done that we need to do. And also you can see that in email 2, the subject line is empty. That's deliberate because if you read this message in yellow, leave this subject line empty if you'd like this email to be a reply, i.e. in the same thread, to the lead's response. Else add your subject line to create a new thread. So in here, we have these subject lines. You can see scaling without hires is one of the subject lines. If a person received that email that contains the subject line scaling without hires, then in email 2, they're going to receive the same email subject line, which is great for context when they are trying to remember, okay, what is this email about? I don't fully understand. Let's scroll. Oh, okay, the previous email said that. This email says this. Oh, it's the same sender that emailed me 3 days ago. By the way, those are 3 days, business days, because as you'll see in the next step, we are going to set this up so it only runs on business days or weekdays. So we've saved changes again, and then we're going to click Save and Next. And now we're in the Setup section of this campaign setup guide. So the next thing you need to do is click on your sender accounts. You can search by domains. You can also click on the filter and search by tags, and then you can select all of the emails on this page, or you can select a certain number of them if you want to, like so. And so it gives you a lot of control over which filtering options you want to use to find the right mailboxes to apply to your campaigns. So that's the first step, is to add your sender mailboxes. Next, we want to schedule the campaign. So we need to choose the time zone. Where are the majority of the recipients who are going to be receiving your emails based, and what time zone is that in? Then we want to optimize for that. So I'm going to type Los Angeles, and let's imagine that most of my leads in this campaign are based in California. So I'm going to keep these settings here, Monday to Friday. I'm then going to say I want it to be received by people in LA or California at 7 a.m. until about 4 p.m. So 4 p.m. is 1600 hours. The reason why is if I have people that are on the East Coast, 7 a.m. to East Coast people is 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. is already 7 p.m. there. So you need to just think about that. Then we need to think about how often do we want to send an email for every mailbox that is associated with this campaign. So if we look at the window, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. is 5 hours until midday and then 4 hours after midday. So it's 9 hours. So with our calculator, we can look at 9 hours times 60 minutes gives us 540 minutes of window. And so how often do you want to send an email per mailbox? Well, if your mailboxes are set up to send, say, 25 emails per day, then we want to send 25 emails over a window of 540 minutes. So 540 divided by 25 means 21.6 minutes. We want to send an email every 21.6 minutes. But as you will see shortly, there are some settings. As you can see, it says here actually, our AI introduces a 30 to 60 second variance trigger, adding a human touch to enhance deliverability. So we don't want to set it to be 21 or 22 minutes. We probably want to keep it at 20 minutes so that we ensure that all 25 of those emails get sent per mailbox or per sender account per day within this window. So just think about those calculations a bit as you are working on this. Think about how many emails per day each sender mailbox, sender account is sending, and then work it out with a calculator with some simple mathematics, and you're going to be rocking and rolling. So then you want to set your campaign start date. So typically you would want to start it on a Monday or a Tuesday ideally, but it's up to you. You can just leave this empty. You don't have to set a campaign start date. And then finally, you want to set the maximum number of new leads reached per day per campaign. Now, I typically put this as a higher value, for example, 1,000 per day, or even higher than that in some cases, because the limitation is going to be dependent on how many mailboxes are associated with this campaign and how many emails per day is each of those mailboxes sending. So for example, if you have 10 mailboxes sending 10 emails per day, that means that the mailbox limitations are only going to allow 100 emails to be sent per day. And so with this setting here, max number of new leads reached per day, per campaign, I'm going to keep this at 1000 because the mailboxes will determine how many leads actually get contacted, and I don't want that to get throttled by having a low number here. So I hope that makes sense. If you had 100 here, even if each mailbox was sending 25 emails a day and you had 25 mailboxes associated with this campaign, this would throttle or limit the number of new leads reached per day. And so I want to set this quite high just to avoid that limitation. So we're going to click save here. And then finally, campaign settings. So this is a very, very important section. You basically want to boost your deliverability by sending emails in plain text without HTML. You also want to force plain text as the content type. And then don't track email opens or link clicks is checked by default. We definitely in 2025 do not want to be doing that anyway. You want to select your smart server if you have one. And the smart server is going to aid with the deliverability and landing in the inbox. So I recommend to use this if possible. It does cost extra money when you're on the pro plan of SmartLead, but if you end up on the expert plan, I believe it's called, then I think they give you a smart server for free. So that's just something to be aware of. Next, we have prioritize sending patterns. So decide how much priority needs to be given to follow-ups versus new leads. If you leave it set like this, 100% priority will be on follow-ups. I would normally put this at somewhere like 50-50, or if you want to reach slightly more new leads than follow-ups per day, you could put 60-40 or even 70-30. But 50-50 works for me. Next, we have the company level auto pause. So what this means is, do you want to stop messaging other people within a company once a person replies from that company? Generally, I don't check this box because just because Joe Blogs from ABC says he's not interested, maybe Mary Poppins the next day says that she would love to talk to us. And if I had checked this box, then Mary Poppins would never have received my email. It'd be a very sad story. So I'm going to leave that unchecked, and I encourage you to do the same. I don't see why you would check it in most cases. Next, we have enhanced email sending and deliverability. So AI auto matches your leads, email providers, and your mailbox providers for boosted deliverability. Gmail to Gmail, Outlook to Outlook. So it's up to you if you want to use this. There are pros and cons to it. And let me just say something. In order to use this feature, you need to have both Outlook and Gmail mailboxes in your sender accounts associated with this campaign. If you only have Google or if you only have Outlook, there is absolutely no point in checking this box. Also, if you were to check this box, depending on the time of year or many other factors, what might happen is it might look highly suspicious to email service providers that this sender mailbox that you have, that you're sending from, that is an Outlook sender box, is only contacting other Outlook mailboxes. That might look suspicious to them, and it might cause them to flag this mailbox as being a cold emailing mailbox or a spam mailbox. Likewise with Gmail, they might find it suspicious if your Google mailbox is only emailing other Google mailboxes. Not always the case. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But just be aware of this and think about it logically and test it. I would encourage you to have 2 versions of your campaign that are identical in every other way, except the only difference between them is in one campaign this is checked, and in the other campaign it's not. And then over time, you'll see if it makes a difference in a positive or a negative way. That's the only way to know if it's going to work for you or not. Moving on, so we have isolated lead email provider sending. So this campaign will auto analyze your lead's MX records and only send to the ESP you select. So this is like a stricter version of the above checkbox. Because the above checkbox, let's say that you have both Gmail and Outlook mailboxes in your campaign, and then in your lead list you have a ton of both. You know, you have Outlook recipients, you have Google recipients, you might even have some SMTP recipients. Checking this box doesn't ensure that strictly Gmail to Gmail will only happen and Outlook to Outlook would only happen. It is basically just whatever mailboxes are available, they will try to prioritize sending to one ESP over the other, but they won't guarantee it. Whereas this isolated lead email provider sending does guarantee that. Just be aware that if that happens, if you use this, for example, if you check Gmail, ideally your lead list should be full of Gmail and not so many or zero Outlook and SMTP, or Outlook or others. Or what you could do is separate it. If you found that Outlook to Outlook works better and Gmail to Gmail works better, you could segment out your lead list and have a Google recipients lead list, an Outlook recipients lead list, and others like SMTP recipients. And then you could have 3 versions of your campaign so that this will happen very strictly and it will increase your deliverability. Next, we have intelligent AI lead categorizations. This is one of the features that I love in SmartLead, and it is so great to be able to use this auto categorizing of leads replies and then use those to trigger events in other apps using webhooks. So if we choose IntelliCategorize replies using SmartLead's AI, then we can choose we want to categorize leads replies as do not contact, information request, out of office, wrong person, interested, meeting request, not interested, pricing request, and uncategorizable by AI. And then I have a couple of other categories that I've added by myself. And so you don't need to worry about those, but you can easily add additional lead reply categories if you want to, so that you can then mark replies as one of these other categories, and that could trigger other subsequences to run or other events to happen in other apps through webhooks. So it's a very powerful feature, but usually I just go with these ones, these 9. And then we have some out of office handling options. So do you want to ignore the auto categorized out of office reply from the reply percentage? I usually don't check this box because I want to know if I'm landing in the inbox, and so I want to not ignore that. I want to see if I'm getting a 1% or lower reply rate on any campaign, because it's a clear indicator that I'm most likely not inboxing in that case. So I tend to keep this unchecked, but I love to check the next one, reactivate auto categorized out of office lead after a delay. And usually I'll set this to something like 7 days. It depends on the season. It depends how long people are going to be off work for. If there's a rush of summer holidays coming up, or if there's a Christmas and New Year's break coming up, I might make this longer, but generally 7 days is good enough. So this is great because it means that if somebody's reply comes back and is categorized automatically as out of office, SmartLead is automatically going to reactivate sending out to that person 7 days later. And you can also check this box, which automatically restarts out of office when the lead returns. I don't know how they do that, but it sounds pretty awesome, so I usually keep that checked as well. And then this is a relatively new feature that I highly recommend that you utilize. It is to activate auto pause protection from bounces. So if you check this box, you can select a bounce percentage that if the threshold is crossed, this campaign will automatically pause. So I'm going to set that to 4%. So that means if my mailboxes do start getting flagged as spam in this campaign, once we cross that 4% bounce threshold, the campaign will pause, which is great because then I can look into things, swap out mailboxes, change the copywriting, and be on my way. And then add unsubscribe message in all campaigns. This is only possible with plain text turned off. And if you remember up at the top here, we're sending in plain text, which you should definitely be doing for cold email. So this is not available. Therefore, let's just save these settings. Therefore, to be compliant, what you want to have is an opt-out sentence somewhere in the email. So I have it down here below the signature, and it allows people to have a way to tell you, I don't want to receive your emails, thank you very much. And then you can receive those emails that then SmartLead will categorize as do not contact or not interested, and you can easily just block those leads if you want to, so that they'll no longer be contacted. So these settings are now done, and if we had already imported our leads, we would see save and next, but we're not seeing that. It is grayed out down here, and that is because we haven't yet imported our leads. So here's an amazing lead list of 5 amazing leads, and we're going to go File, Download, comma separated values. Now we're going to go back into SmartLead and go to Import Leads. We're going to click here and find our lead list, and then we are going to drag and drop it, and we're presented with some options in this modal. So do you want to import leads even if they are in the global block list? No, I don't. The global block list is in my SmartLead account, and it will be in yours too, for you to be able to block a list of email addresses or domains that you never want to contact, i.e. your clients, your clients' clients, your clients' past clients, your past clients, anyone that is a hot lead already that you just don't want to interfere with and accidentally outreach to. So we'll leave that unchecked. Import leads even if they are in the unsubscribe list. No. Import leads even if they bounced across our entire user database. Yes, because I have verified my leads, because I am a responsible cold emailer. And so these emails test at dummy 1, dummy 2, dummy 3, they're all verified, guys. It's definitely, they work. And then ignore the leads that exist in another campaign. I would recommend let's think about this. So ignore the leads that exist in another campaign. If enabled, any lead that is also in another campaign will not be imported. If you have another campaign that is running, then you might want to turn this on. But one thing that's not too clear is if you have another campaign that has leads in it, but that other campaign is turned off, you might want to leave this setting turned off so that that old campaign has already finished months ago. And so then you want some of the same leads from that campaign to be in this new campaign so that you have another chance to try and convert them into a client, right? So up to you what you want to do there, but generally these are the settings I go with, and I'm going to click Save. And now we can map our fields. And one thing I love about SmartLead is that it automatically maps fields that are named similarly to what you have. So the word similarly means that you need to be very, very careful when you do this, because imagine if I had email variants, like I have email lead magic, email Prospio, email find email, email debounce, email bounce ban. Which option is it mapping here? And that's why I recommend cleaning up your lead list in Google Sheets first of all. Delete all the columns that you don't need. Rename columns so that they are named in the same naming convention as these here. So company name, in my sheet it's called company name, so it was able to map it easily. If I had called this organization name, it might not figure that out. So you just need to be aware of that. Job title is not mapped because there is no field for job title, so I need to import that as a custom field. Founded year, let's put that as a custom field. And once they're mapped as custom fields, we can now use them as custom variables in our emails. Company LinkedIn, again, is not there by default, so we want to map that. And then company description, I like to include that. Okay, so now that all these are done, we can click Save and Next. And then if you want to use SmartLead's feature of verifying, you can use it. I'm not going to use it because I already verified, so I'm going to click skip and proceed. And now we can go to sequences and we can use any of those custom variables like technologies, founded year, company LinkedIn, right? Those were not there before. So I'm going to click Save Changes again, and we're going to go Save and Next. So I'm just going to click on one, select that. So now that we've chosen a sender account, we can Save and Next to go to the final review. So let's click on Save and Next. And this is where you can see a preview of each of your variants of emails 1 and email 2. So email 2 doesn't have any variants, it just has variant A. So you can read it and make sure that all the syntax is resolved. You can make sure the wording is done correctly. You can make sure that there are no mistakes or errors. And you need to spend some time on this section of your campaign setup to make sure that everything is looking good and that there are no issues. So you can see that we're in this Jack Stein person is receiving variant A. If we click onto Wei Zhao, you can see Wei Zhao will receive variant B, and variant B looks like this. So you can read it, make sure that the syntax is not showing any curly braces or pipes, and that the wording looks natural. And so everything's looking good here. And so once you're happy with it, you can then click Start Campaign. Obviously, I'm not going to click that right now because these are dummy emails. Actually, I will click it just to show you what that looks like. But also, in this screen, a couple of things. Firstly, this is the desktop view. You can click here to see the mobile view, which is very handy, because the way that your email looks on mobile, which a lot of people read on, is important. You don't want to have massive blocks of text and paragraphs that are too long, so that is a very useful feature. Next, we have a filter here so that we can search for people who are scheduled, i.e. not contacted yet, in progress, completed, or blocked. And so none of these people have started the campaign yet. That's why they all have a little blue triangle here. But if they were in progress, then they would be marked with an orange triangle, and if they were completed, they'd be marked as green, and if they were blocked, I think it would be red. But anyway, that's handy. And so now that I'm happy with this campaign, I will click Start Campaign, and it then shows this modal to say, do you want to test this, run a spam test on this campaign? I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to click Skip for now, and you will see that we're on this page and the campaign is active. So I'm going to click here and pause the campaign because I don't want these to be sent out. And now we have a lot of options here. So one option that is very useful is subsequences. And so we can add a subsequence and we can give it a name, for example, meeting request. And then we can say, choose the condition if the lead category is equal to meeting request, then let's send them this subsequence, meaning we're going to remove them from the main campaign sequence and we're going to add them to this subsequence. And so we're going to send it after 0 days. Click Save and Next. And then you can type another email here and build a sequence just as we did, saying, okay, great, here's my calendar, book a time with me. I wouldn't recommend that. It's better to actually suggest real times to them so there's less work for your leads to do on their side. And, you know, those are some options. But for example, if your call to action was, do you want to see a video? And they say, yes, I want to see the video. You could have a subsequence that goes, great, here's the video. Let me know if you want to chat. And then email 2 could say, hey, did you see the video? What did you think of it? By the way, if you want to chat, here's my Calendly link. So these options are available to you. Also, if somebody said, thanks, I might be interested later, but now's not a good time, you could have a subsequence for them, and you could call it something like not interested dash follow up, and it could say, no worries, let me know when you're ready. And then you could have it at step 30 days later or 60 days later. Hey, just checking in. We touched base a month ago or 2 months ago. Just wanted to see if your situation has changed, and if you'd like to chat, let me know. So if you need to set up a custom lead category for that, then what you would do is you would go to your settings, go here, click on lead categories, and then add a new lead category, give it a name, choose whether it's positive, not positive, or neutral, give it a color, create it, and then it's available to you. And so then, for example, I have one, not interested dash follow up. So I could create a subsequence for that situation, and then all I would need to do, if I wanted to use AI to rely on that, then I would be able to go into that campaign, go to those settings, and then in the Intelligent AI lead categorization section, I would just need to choose not interested dash follow up as one of those, and then add it to the campaign. So that has pretty much covered how you can use SmartLead to set up a campaign from start to finish. I highly recommend this tool. It's very powerful and is jam-packed with features that make it very, very nice for anyone doing cold email. If you'd like to talk about having us set up your SmartLead campaigns and your outreach campaigns using tools like Clay, SmartLead, HeyReach, and any other tools, then feel free to book a time in my calendar and let's have a chat and see if there's a fit to work together. Other than that, I hope you have a great day.